You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
Yes, indeed, it is the Gillette Performance Rankings, and every week we go through the bad, the good, the grand, and we are brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. And every week we give you the chance to win a Gillette Labs shaving kit. To be with a chance of winning that, you can just let us know who you think should make the performance rankings, and the best place to enter is on the Off the Ball Instagram page. You can see the comments box in our story for suggestions. We got loads of suggestions in over the last few days, and I guess the best place to start in the red, as you can see there, is Irish Rugby after the performance on Saturday, which doesn't feel overly surprising or shocking or any sort of OTT word you want to use in relation to it. It kind of feels that this was about the level that we expected. It wasn't as bad as the scoreline suggested, I would say. Like, I wouldn't get overly carried away with it. Ireland could have been closer. The All Blacks weren't very good. They were good. They were much better than Ireland, but they can hit another level, which is kind of terrifying ahead of Dunedin this weekend. And I think all in all, if you take this on in isolation in a stadium where the All Blacks haven't lost in 28 years, worse things could have happened. And I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's even grand. It was bad, and it still could have been a lot worse, which probably tells you all you need to know about where Ireland are at the moment and the expectations going into next year, where they will need to undo a big team, one of the top 2 teams in the world, top 3 teams in the world, in order to break that glass ceiling. The evidence of the last week is that that glass ceiling ain't going to be shattered next year.
Isn't it good of the All Blacks to just remind us that the once every 4 years going out at a World Cup quarter-final or before it is coming our way, almost irrespective of what we do at this point. So what's the point in hoping? Abandon hope, all ye who enter here. Isn't that what happened? You're like, it wasn't that bad. Really? Was it not that bad? We had like loads of possession, loads of territory. Yeah. And, you know, the scoreline was not close in the end. Yeah. And there was nothing we could do to interrupt the pattern.
Like, the thing is, though, the possession and territory in a different day would have narrowed the scoreline a little bit more.
Yeah, a little bit more. But, like, to the point where we're going to win the game?
No, I didn't say that. I just think that it just would have, like, reflected... like, the scoreline, when you looked at it, like, looks like a hammering. And
it was a hammering, though. They scored 28 points in about 3 minutes, and we couldn't stop them.
No, okay, so it was a hammering. But there's different levels of hammerings here. There's a 60-0. That was literally Ireland. It was literally Ireland's last game.
Yeah, but we had a man sent off after 5 minutes, so that's not a real score. We never get beaten 60-0. That's why that happened once.
I know, but like, I mean, Ireland have got players sent off and not lost game 60-0.
Never against the All Blacks, right? I mean, and also not after 5 or 6 minutes, the way that one was in the last test. I think the 60-0 is a bad example, right? That was fairly stereotypical. Okay, well, yeah. That was actually fairly stereotypical. Plucky Ireland, we go out, we do well for 15 minutes, and then we get absolutely destroyed. And then afterwards, we're like, oh, we're not that far away. But actually, the truth is, we're miles away. Where's everybody talking about our world-class front row right now? Where's all that nonsense that we puffed up ourselves with? Oh, look, we've got this great, everything in Irish rugby is perfect. It works perfectly. The kids come through the school system, they play for Leinster, they play for Ireland. It's the same style, it's the same system. Apparently, New Zealand looked at that and went, just do this and this and this. Oh, thanks, La Rochelle, and thanks, Bulls. That's a good point. We'll do that too. And then they didn't even have to try that hard.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think that's probably true. Like, I mean, nobody's saying that Ireland are on the same level as the All Blacks. My point is just that there are different degrees of hammerings, and this wasn't the worst hammering that Ireland could have taken on Saturday.
Do you feel like perhaps you're, going a bit easy on them for this? Like, is that not... That's our best team. That's our best team. Like...
But I think it's not going easy on them. It's like actually an acceptance of where this team is actually at, or what Irish rugby can achieve over the next little while, because...
A quarter-final of the World Cup.
Yeah.
Our destiny is to be the same as ever it was.
Like, have you seen anything over the last little while that would suggest that would change? Like, did you come away from the Six Nations this year thinking next year's the year? Because we've been in better positions after other Six Nations going into a World Cup year.
I hope that having put it up to France in that game, and yeah, I hope that having just beaten the All Blacks in November, we would have kicked on from that, but we didn't kick on from that. It appears as if that was a peak.
Yeah.
Isn't that the point?
I guess so. Like, I mean, the counterpoint to that was that some of the players, and I'm saying some of them, not all of them, some of the players were exciting, and they still are exciting. And I'm talking about the young hookers in particular that kind of we pinned our hopes on for a period of time, saying there's
like
two players.
Superhero.
And when Kelleher comes back, I mean, there's two players you can pin your hat on there, and that was maybe informing it a little bit. There was like, in fairness, we haven't seen them enough, but there was like a tranche of Ulster players coming through, and the backs especially, which hopefully we'll see over the next few years that we're giving hope. And that's kind of what you want. You look at a team in the present and hope that they can get better over the next little while.
Yeah, but unfortunately the next little while isn't really the next little while. It's like the next 6 games, and that's it to get to the World Cup. Like, maybe it's not this World Cup, it's the World Cup after. We've got a 5-year plan in place here, and actually it's World Cup 2020, blah, 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 whatever the next one is. Where is that one going to be? Do we know?
I have no idea.
It's the American and Canada one?
Oh, that one's confirmed, yeah. That is true. So, like, what were you expecting on Saturday morning?
I was expecting us to be able to, under whatever the circumstances, if all is going well, I was expecting us to be able to drag New Zealand into a dogfight and keep the score close. I was expecting our defensive structure to hold up. I was expecting our set piece to work. I was expecting our tackles not to be missed. I was expecting us not to knock the ball on as much as we did. Yeah,
now those are things that you can kind of point to. I think it's, I don't know. I think that there's a gulf between these two teams, isn't there?
But there shouldn't be, really. Like, why is there? We just beat them relatively well when they were here the last time, and so even if there is a gulf between them, we have enough rugby experience and knowledge and nous to be able to drag a team into something that they don't want, as opposed to doing what we did, which now I'm doing the glass half empty reading of this, because there's a lot of glass half full. We just got annihilated, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is grand." It's a bit like the meme of the dog in the fire.
Yeah, do you know, is it though? Like, is anybody saying it's grand? Like,
yeah, everybody's actually saying
it could have been worse is not the same as saying it's grand.
I see and hear a lot of people talking about the positives from it, and lots of people getting great experience, and certainly the upbeat message from the captain and the coach afterwards was the refereeing was a bit off, and like, I think it definitely was, and maybe the refereeing transforms the game. Maybe there is a possibility that you start pinging them in the rucks and we have more time in the ball, and all of a sudden we can do what we did to them. And that, it's as simple as that. I don't know. There's a possibility that's the case. I doubt it, and I certainly am not hanging my hat on it, but there's been a wellspring of positivity about the experience and what we're learning. And it's like, nah, I don't know. I just feel uncomfortable with that. Like...
yeah, it's an interesting kind of question of perspective on it all. Like, there's definitely a part of me that's thinking to myself, you know what, find out how you react to the toughest possible situation. Find out how you react when Michael Bent is literally getting called up to training in that situation, in the toughest place in the world, to go for a summer tour. Add those extra Maori games, put yourself under severe pressure over the course of it. Part of me definitely thinks that is a good way to go. Because what's the point on finding out that you're incapable of sustaining that ridiculous level of pressure, incapable of sustaining it at the end of next year? Why not just find it out now? Why not just add this into the Irish schedule every second year and make these tests as tough as possible, so that you don't just get humbled every 4 years, you actually get humbled every second year. And maybe every so often, because you're getting these every second year rather than every 4th year, you win one of these tests, or you win one of these series that are exceptionally tough. Granted, you're not going to have the All Blacks all the time. They went and they won in Australia. They went and they won a test in South Africa in what was it, 16? Like,
and they won a tour in Argentina. So they've done all that, you know. Like, that's the thing, is that, like, there's nothing new here really under the sun, except that this one has come around in this World Cup cycle. Let's get to the comments, right? Fergus Keogh, Red's a bit harsh for the rugby. 17 really bad minutes, but otherwise fairly decent, all things considered. I haven't heard anybody say it was like, okay, yeah. Andy Jennings, hope is all we have, Ger. Ireland were over the line 3 times and denied tries by great defence. The All Blacks team are beatable. We get special points for not scoring the try over the line, do we? Is that what happens? There's like a little asterisk goes, oh, but we scored 3 tries that weren't given. Like, Kenny the dad says, I don't think we were hammered. Silly interception try and ball handling at the New Zealand line on 3 occasions cost us dearly. They were more clinical. Severisa's try counts. They put the points on the board, and they're 7 points. That's what happens when an intercept try happens. If we had scored an intercept try, everybody would be like, oh, look at that. That's quality defending. Look at the pressure we put them under.
But that's not what the commentator is saying. Like,
they are. They're saying that this is grand. The fire is raging at the door, and the dog is smiling off into the distance going, this is grand.
I actually... So okay, let me think. So Ireland were going to lose that test anyway on Saturday. it's about looking at it in kind of like a wider sense of what can they take from that test, or what is it telling us?
Why do we accept that, though?
No, I'm not saying it's about accepting it. I'm saying that, say if you're taking into account Ireland getting over the line, not dotting the ball down, and that basic breakdown in skills, do we then have like this? Do we then look at that moment and say we need to have a wider conversation around schools rugby and grassroots rugby and do you know what, throughput of talent, or is actually that's something that suggests was that this scoreline could have been closer at the weekend?
What we do is we have that conversation in the aftermath of the World Cup every 4 years, and then a little bit of green shoots comes through. There's a successful underage team. Everybody's like, oh, everything's going grand. And then we get to the World Cup quarter-final and we get beaten again. So
you need to have more of those experiences, and that conversation needs to be happening more and more. But like I don't know. I think that those commentators are kind of onto something with regards to that. And like, I mean, that saying that New Zealand, the commentator saying New Zealand weren't even great there. Like, that's kind of what I think, and that's kind of more of a worrying sign as well. If you want to kind of feed into your glass half empty argument, is that New Zealand could easily just go up another notch the next day. And look, I'm not going to bring it up again, but the 60-0, let's not forget, was actually at the end of the tour. The last time Ireland went on tour to New Zealand's, we got evidence that they actually get better as the tour goes on, or maybe Ireland get ground down as the tour goes on. So maybe this will get worse, and maybe your very half-empty glass will be particularly empty, and it won't even be half full next Monday after next weekend. There is every chance that happens. I just think that there's a willingness to make excuses for the rugby team when they fail, right? And what they need to do is stop making those excuses. And like, I'm sure the coaching ticket in private are not making excuses, but it did feel like afterwards there's been a lot of happy clappy, they're tired, whatever, this is inevitable, sure, they're New Zealand, what can we do but keep the ball poked out to them? Do you know, like, this is supposed to be us, one of the first world nations, going down to show with our very best team. We picked the very best players available to us, who may or may not be available around a World Cup, but that's the level that you're going to have of a team representing us in the big games in the World Cup, because you can't legislate for anything other than having a bunch of your players injured at any one time. And we got spanked. We got absolutely spanked in that game. You know, but for this and that, and there was a few things, and maybe the referee, fair enough. But the truth is, we got absolutely spanked, and we need to be honest about that before we can fix it, I think. Yeah, it just sounds like you're surprised about what happened on Saturday. Well, you know, I mean, what, are you not? You predicted the 30-point hammering. I don't think after the Maori game last week that many people were predicting Ireland were going to put up the Maori game, again, were two entirely different teams. No, I get that. But it was still the sort of mood music that comes into a test like this. And also, it is kind of like your situation of like, where's your depth at compared to where is New Zealand depth at? Right. And that will always feed into the top tier eventually. Ger Luby says, they still are the best team in the world. Playing down there is the hardest tour. This is where we learn about our players. Easy to pick where we were poor, but can we grow and improve? Go back and look at Earl's try in the first half. Really good play with fantastic skills. Pity they couldn't repeat that. And Daniel Casey says, ref was definitely off, but didn't have an impact on the result of the game. I think although the ruck was an issue, New Zealand punished our mistakes, ruthless as always. So we'll see. I expect a response from the team next week. I expect them to be able to dig in, and when the second try goes in a minute, they'll be like, start a scrap, somebody go down injured, you know, whatever it is you're supposed to do to interrupt the flow of the game at that point. I would do that. And I would expect them to have some little tricks for that. Jakob Piper's up on Saturday as well. Yeah, I did not know that. I expect South Africa. I expect South Africa and New Zealand to both be the winners next weekend. Our next team in red is Clare. We have only limited room to touch on every team here, so this is a conversation as much about Kilkenny being in the green as it is about Clare being in the red, because yeah, it's hard to know which was most surprising. Like, you talk about trying to interrupt momentum there in the context of the Irish rugby team on Saturday. Could Clare have done something more in the first half to try and interrupt the momentum that was clearly going against them, like a complete breakdown on Saturday? Maybe they could have. Like, it did feel that, like, maybe that's at the end of the game that they had against Wexford in the All-Ireland quarter-final, that Wexford lost a few key components of their defence. And maybe that is the true reason why Clare actually got over that All-Ireland quarter-final. Yes, O'Donnell and Kelly really turned it on in the last quarter of that game, but was the reason why that happened was because Wexford lost a couple of key components of that defence. That might potentially be the truth now when we look at what that Kilkenny defence did to that Clare attack and just completely nullifying them and allowing Kilkenny to completely run riot over the course of the entire game. So Mikey Butler, Hugh Lawler, Paddy Deegan, they're the guys getting the credit, and rightly so, in that Kilkenny defence, and they just completely locked up Kelly and Co. And once you lock up Tony Kelly, chances are you've got to go some way to stopping Clare. What was it, 27, 28 games consecutively and that Tony Kelly has scored from playing. That run came to an end at the weekend as a result of Mikey Butler's performance. On the flip side of that then was Clare not being able to shut down Kilkenny's attack whatsoever. TJ, Owen Cody and your boy Adrian Mullen, who you've been talking up for the last few years, kind of had, certainly when it came to Cody and Mullen, probably their finest day so far, certainly in recent memory. So I think the 4 weeks that they had off was absolutely perfect for a team that likes to prepare immaculately for an opponent. I would suggest that Brian Cody has a blueprint. It might not be the blueprint, but he has a blueprint to stop Limerick in a couple of weeks. And I'd be surprised if it was anything but another classic between these two teams. Limerick, though, will be angry after what happened in 2019. I think John Kiley said yesterday that 3 years is a long time. It doesn't come into play whatsoever. Is 3 years long enough for Brian Cody to have forgotten what happened in the 2019 final, though, and Richie Hogan's red card and all that? I'm not so sure. I think that actually, in hindsight, 2019 may actually be something that motivates Kilkenny as much as Limerick. So that's going to be fascinating. But Clare were really bad on Saturday, really, really disappointing. And maybe it's the Croke Park factor. It doesn't sum up everything. There's a whole pile of other reasons to explain that performance, and maybe some that don't even explain that performance. But I would say that they were a little bit like deer in the headlights, hitting the big house and underperforming.
It doesn't make any sense. Andy Jennings says Clare were utter tripe, the biggest disappointment of 2022. It's certainly a massive letdown for them and for everybody associated with them, because they were so brilliant so far, so vibrant, so like I don't know, when the wides were racking up from plays that they had been scoring from all year, the massive raking points from inside their own half or the halfway line that had been tearing other teams apart, when they started drifting wide, that was just the end of it. Like the air came out of the balloon so quickly with that. And there was a bit of that in Galway, but Galway kept at it. Like the Galway wides really killed them as well in the end. I know the refereeing decisions definitely did not go their way in that second half, and they can feel a little bit hard done by about that. But at the same time, it's the wides that will kill them over the winter when they look back at the video. And there's no explanation for what happened to Clare, really. Like, I see, was it Dalo was saying that the Munster final took so much out of them, but again, I don't know. They seem to have recovered from that, and they seem to have had a bit of time since then. Maybe they're just not used to playing at this stage of the season, those games I don't know. You're grasping and groping for some kind of explanation, but it doesn't make any sense.
No, I think that if Clare had won on Saturday, we would have been saying that the 4 week layoff for Kilkenny had them stale, and the tune-up that Clare had against Wexford and the extra time against Limerick had them perfectly primed for that game. I think Paddy Andrews often says it on the football pod, this idea of being undercooked or overcooked or whatever it is, just is a complete excuse. And like the Dubs had to try and get themselves to a pitch every year after the Leinster Football Championship. Granted, Clare were coming at it from another perspective, and the Wexford game was a tough one for sure, but I don't think it comes anywhere close to explaining what happened. It is a reason for sure, but it's not anywhere near the reason, and they'll struggle to find a silver bullet. The only thing is that they're probably in danger a little bit of throwing the baby out with the bathwater this winter, and I hope it doesn't happen, because it does feel that this has been a bit of an arrival season for Clare. The problem for them is that they're in the Munster Championship next year.
Yeah.
They could easily be grand and finish fourth, and their season could be done. They could have a Waterford-esque season where they go after the league even more so than they did this year, win that silverware and get dumped out of Munster. So
don't go after the league is the lesson we've all learned.
That is the lesson. Right? The thing is, so I think this year was a great opportunity for them. Like Kilkenny just have us bemused quite often, and they have done down through the years, about how they are the Death Star that just can never be destroyed. And
Cody and Mullen are both young hurlers of the year, and they're both coming to full maturity at this stage. Mullen's back from his injury, had faced some internal criticism. That was one of the stories that we've been talking about over the last month and a half or so, and was finding form and found it. And like, Cody's devastating. There's they can, and Tommy Walsh was making the point and has been making the point all along, he feels like the players as individuals are there. It's whether or not they can reach that maturity of style that they need, and they looked to be able to do it yesterday. And again, you know, TJ Reid went off and got married and came back and was a bit slow getting back to the levels of TJ Reid, and now has slowly played his way back to the levels of TJ Reid. It's like, well, this is interesting. It is interesting. You'd still make Limerick strong favourites on the basis of what they were able to do yesterday. When they needed it, they went to the bench, and actually the bench didn't make that much of an impact, really. It was the players who were on the field. It was like the dominance of Kyle Hayes for 15 minutes at the end of the game yesterday. So, you know, Kyle Hayes, not a great season. Man of the match, All-Ireland semi-final, centre forward. Thanks very much. Not a defender, not a full forward line. I'm a centre forward. Put me main stage.
Yeah, that was like another kind of terrifying aspect of Limerick yesterday. Like, it's just, Kilkenny are just the great unknown sometimes, because even allowing for Clare's wides and the breakdown in their attack, there was still just a whole host of mini battles happening across the pitch where it was just man on man who could get to the ball first, and Kilkenny won, it seemed anyway, to the eye test, that they were winning the vast majority of those battles. And it's trying to describe that, or trying to put into words how that happens, and that's the kind of the beautiful intangible about this team, and has been about Brian Cody teams down through the years.
He talks about literally the Oisin was interviewing him, and it was like, oh, what did you like most? Honesty of effort, genuineness, like, you know, hard work, hooking, blocking, tackling, like, it's like, yeah. But they were also allied to that. They were able to ping the ball to each other and find space and create opportunities. And it's like, okay, all right. So they're like the Terminator. They've mutated into something completely different now. And it's like, ooh, that's interesting. So if he pulls this off, like,
it's the best he's ever pulled off.
It is like far and away the best he would ever have pulled off, because this is a rival in Limerick who are actually rivaling his great Kilkenny team to be one of the great teams of all time. So much is on the line. It's going to be 2 great weeks of build up to that. Limerick 3-point favourites as it stands at the moment. So we'll come back to that.
Next up in the amber is Cristiano Ronaldo. I would have Manchester United actually maybe in the amber as opposed to Ronaldo. The problem for Manchester United, or the opportunity for Manchester United potentially, is a Cristiano Ronaldo shaped one, who wants to leave the club in order to play Champions League football. He's played in the Champions League obviously for 19 consecutive seasons. He scored 140 goals in the competition. He probably wants to add a few more goals to that tally, so he wants to play Champions League football next season. Manchester United don't really have another striker to step up. His 18 goals last season, I guess, put a bit of a gloss statistically on the year, but some could very reasonably make the argument that actually he held them back last season. So there has been some reports over the last little while that Todd Bowley has had talks with George Mendes. The idea of him moving to Stamford Bridge has been floated, but Manchester United believe not to be entertaining this whatsoever, and they're firmly saying that they want to keep the player. But you just wonder, is there a situation here where Ten Hag could turn this into something of a positive, like a Ronaldo who doesn't want to be at the club? Is that what Ten Hag needs in his first season?
Get him out. This is an opportunity. What do you like? Man United, they're in the amber because they're primed to go. This is like a big moment for them. Get him out. Drive him to the airport and say thanks very much. Get a helicopter to land on the pitch. Wave him off. Say thanks very much, Ronaldo. That was great. We stopped you from being in the Man City jersey. That was brilliant. Imagine if he'd gone to Man City and stunk the joint out there. Like, Get Ronaldo out. This is a big opportunity to hit the reset button properly, and then you take his salary off. You take all the issues and all the stuff that's going on, and you say, right, this is entirely 100% the responsibility of the players who are here now. Let's see you all step up. Marcus Rashford again in the papers talking about, you know, it's great. There's a new voice, new tactical direction. Things have changed. Like, why are you talking? Why are you talking? But get Ronaldo out, start again. If there's any money coming in for it, I mean, that's very unlikely, right? That you did not expect to get any money back for Ronaldo, considering you signed him on a 2-year deal. But either way, they have to take this opportunity to get rid of Cristiano now. He is not a useful, functioning part of a team who is going to win the league, and they're trying to build a league-winning team, and they need to start thinking medium term as opposed to the constant short term. Let's have the dessert that's on the table, and let's have another dessert, and let's have another dessert, and let's have another dessert. I feel sick. Why do I feel sick? Because I've gorged myself on short term thinking.
Like, the frustrating thing for Manchester United here is that they failed to qualify for the Champions League 2 months ago. Like, Cristiano Ronaldo's rationale for wanting to leave the club should have been obvious in April, really, and they didn't even need to get to the end of the season before this came to light. So Ten Hag at least seems like a fairly meticulous planner. I would suggest that his plans included Cristiano Ronaldo. Does that not involve a phone call to Ronaldo? Does that not involve a conversation where you try and war game every single scenario here which involves Ronaldo leaving? Because this isn't a bolt from the blue, Cristiano Ronaldo leaving Manchester United this summer. You would like to think that the Manchester United as a club would have sussed out if Ronaldo was happy to stay for next season last month. Whereas now, I know it's only July, but pre-season has begun, in case people haven't been paying attention. It's not a very active pre-season with a lot of good players playing yet or anything like that, but it has begun. Teams are about to go on tour. Is this just going to be another one of these summers where Manchester United leave everything late again?
I think a couple of things, right? It doesn't really matter if they leave everything late this year because Ten Hag is a long-term thing, and so I don't think we should be judging Ten Hag until the end of the season, and even kind of the start of the next season when there's that third transfer window that he'll had will be shut. So it doesn't really matter to me if this happens late. And the other thing I think is that it's possible that somebody has decided that they're interested in him, and now all of a sudden that's why this move is happening. So you're kind of...
It's Mendes potentially working away in the background.
Yeah, or maybe it is the interest from Chelsea and the fact that Bayern Munich might want or need somebody. I don't know. Either way, the opportunity to get rid of him and not be stuck with him for this year and constantly having to play through him and having all the drama. Oh, he didn't shake the hands, or he didn't go and clap the fans. He had a row. Somebody else took the penalty. Get rid of all that. Get rid of all of that. And if anybody else creates any drama this year, get rid of them. You've got rid of Pogba. You've got rid of Lingard. There's a few other players there who you could do with gently easing out. So Ronaldo is clearly one of those players who, sells loads of shirts and creates loads of social media buzz. But if Ten Hag is going to take over, and we keep hearing about, he's on the training ground and he's telling them all what to do. It's okay, it's kind of what a manager's supposed to. Or a good coach. Maybe there hasn't been anybody coaching that team properly for the last number of years. Get Ronaldo out. Now's the opportunity. Get him gone. Get rid of that. And if it is late and if it's a pain in the ass to try and replace him or get some bodies in, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Just get rid of him and then start again.
You would have to say, though, that if the decision happens late this summer, they might not be able to find a suitable replacement. And is that Manchester United squad good enough to finish top four?
I don't think they're finishing top four this season.
Regardless, even if they sign top-class striker.
I don't know. I don't know what their best bet is.
It's hard to make that case, to be fair. Even at this current state of play, if Ten Hag even has a successful season, like Spurs and Chelsea, the positions they're in going into next season seem pretty strong. And even for Arsenal recruiting very well at the moment, it's hard to make a case for them to be top four as well. So maybe not. Maybe it's just an acceptance that the build has to happen, and that's exactly how it has to go. But maybe building without Ronaldo is exactly what you want to do in season one, and it just opens the opportunity for somebody else. In the green, we'll get to Wimbledon with Cullum in just a moment, but before that we should talk about Limerick. You kind of touched on them a little bit already, just with regards to some of their performances yesterday. Kyle Hayes just coming back to form in pretty spectacular fashion, got man of the match. I think what's potentially even more terrifying is who didn't play well. Obviously Keenan Lynch barely features. Gerard Hegarty doesn't have one of his great days, even though he's been one of their stars over the last couple of years, and they still managed to eke out the win when it matters most. It feels to me sometimes as if it's been the Lynch and Hegarty show over the last little while, that they've been the two most important components of that attack. And even somebody as extraordinarily talented as Aaron Gillane sometimes just goes under the radar a little bit. They sometimes just don't need him. They just find themselves in open space 60 yards out from a goal, and they're like, well, we don't need you inside. But sometimes when it's really, really important, when the games are in the melting pot, they need Aaron Gillane inside. They need their corner forward. And whenever they need him, he comes up trumps. And he was sensational yesterday as well. It was the Gillane and Hayes show. And they have options everywhere, 1 to 15. It's an absolutely outstanding team. And to beat them, you need to be close to perfect. Galway were not anywhere close to perfect yesterday when you look at the wides count. However, you look at, say, the Brian Concannon goal, the pass inside to him was just weighted perfectly. And if you can do that against Limerick, if you can go long and get your distribution perfect, which I accept is a big ask, you might be able to cause some problems.
But you'd say that Galway at best broke even with that long ball into the full back line, because there was countless times, particularly in the last 5 or 6 minutes, where the ball would go up, it would be one-on-one, and the Limerick defender comes out with the ball in his hand passes it off, or looks up and finds somebody does the crocodile eyes and goes, yeah, I can see stuff. I don't know. They're at such a high level, and yet, Goya right there. You know, it's level going into stoppage time. And Goya, I think we're going to have a lot of regrets about the Ys that they hit in stoppage time as well. So, anyway, we'll talk more about Limerick. We've plenty of time for that.
Yeah, and Wimbledon is last up. Colm, how are you?
Owen and Ger, good morning.
In the green?
In the green, Saturday night drama. Nick Kyrgios versus Stefanos Tsitsipas. It's our yearly, or annual, I should say, Kyrgios love-in. Or hate-in, wherever you stand on it. But he provided the drama once again with an unbelievable display against Tsitsipas. An unbelievable display of both tennis and shithousery at the highest level. But Tsitsipas actually got fined more than Kyrgios. So usually we have Kyrgios is doing all the bad behaviour, and the other player is usually pretty quiet, goes about their business, doesn't want to get involved in it. But Tsitsipas is rising to the occasion and, kind of like just hit kind of a backhand frustrated shot into the crowd at the end of the second set when he lost the second set, Tsitsipas, and it just missed a fan. And had it hit a fan, he would have been DQ'd.
Yeah, so disqualified for anybody who's not down with the patois of tennis. At that point, there is a conflagration. Like, there is an absolute... Kyrgios is screaming at the umpire going, that's a disqualification. He needs to get... You can't hit the ball into the crowd without it being a disqualification. And then the umpire is actually having a back and forth with him, which is, it's difficult. There needs to be some way to speak in a sensible way to somebody who is being a brat and at the same time not engage too much. Because once you start engaging, he's like, well, what about Djokovic? It's like, good point. Your man in the crowd, it's possible the ball bounced back and hit him in the back of the head.
No, it didn't hit anybody, definitely.
Sure?
Definitely, yeah, 100%.
You don't see, you see it go in between.
Yeah, but there was a person sitting there. That person got up. So had the person been sitting there, it would have hit that person there.
Well, that's pretty lucky.
What I found was when the TV coverage showed that the first thing after that second set ended was Kyrgios walking back to his chair. Then it cuts out and then it goes back to Kyrgios complaining to the umpire something about Tsitsipas, he needs to be disqualified. And my thinking was, Kyrgios just isn't up for this match because it's one set all, and that was really hard to win that second set. And towards the end of that second set, Kyrgios did one of his things where he kind of starts to give up because Tsitsipas won the first set. And I think he had one service game where he was serving so fast that the ball boys weren't back in place in time and Tsitsipas wasn't ready. And he wasn't bouncing the ball in times. He was just picking up and serving and then looking at his box being like, what do you want me to do? I'm playing terribly. Why aren't you helping me? And he doesn't have a coach. He's never had a coach. So he just has his entourage up there and he basically vents to them.
Or is he talking to himself?
Well, he's talking to his box, but it's about himself.
He's screaming abuse at somebody.
There was a point.
Himself or the box?
Well, there was a point where he was 2-1 up, and the commentators were saying, he's in dreamland here. He should be happy out with life, and he was venting every time they went to sit down. Venting towards his box, saying something, couldn't really make it out, but it was clearly to himself, giving out to himself. So when I thought,
because if there's somebody in the box taking that, they need to get down there and smack around the chops.
Well, when I saw him complaining to the umpire, I thought he doesn't want to play, and then I saw what Tsitsipas did. But it was actually better after that when Kyrgios tried one of his underarm serves, and Tsitsipas smashed the ball back at him, and it hit the scoreboard. And had that hit the crowd, then people, maybe not. But they would have got away with it because it's in play, and all he would have had to say was, I just hit a terrible shot.
You're allowed to do that.
Afterwards, Tsitsipas said, I was aiming for Kyrgios.
Yeah, well, he hit him twice.
Yeah, and that was the only time in the whole match where Kyrgios is quiet because he just let Tsitsipas have his tantrum because he knew he was going to get the better of him. And afterwards, Tsitsipas, and they're formerly friends, like former double partners, these two. Tsitsipas called him a bully.
I'm tight with his brother, says
Yeah, tight with his brothers, yeah. But I don't know, yeah, I mean, that was kind of a little bit of a dig. Well, we used to be tight, but I'm actually tighter with your brothers now. But they played doubles together in the past. There's loads of comments, Kyrgios, speaking very nicely about Tsitsipas, or Kyrgios, but very nicely about Tsitsipas. But afterwards, Tsitsipas calls him a bully.
And evil.
And evil side to him. And he also wanted to balance that. He said there's a good side to him too, but there's an evil side. And Kyrgios said, well, he needs to toughen up. He's soft. I play basketball all the time, and it's dog eat dog. And these tennis players, they're not so bad to play against. You need to toughen up.
I mean, Tsitsipas is we don't know what he was saying, I guess, but I mean, getting trash talked in professional sport. I mean, is that not just the nature of the beast?
Yeah, I mean, it is. It is to an extent. I understood Tsitsipas's point because Kyrgios does tend to get his way in these things.
He does.
Yeah, I mean, he does. Like, he gets fined. Like, he got fined for his verbals to the umpire. He got fined $4,000, and Tsitsipas got $10,000 for the ball into the crowd. But he does tend to get his way.
Should have been disqualified.
I don't know how he wasn't.
I think
I can't believe the difference. You have to actually hit someone. That's the rule?
Yeah, well, or hurt them then, and so that debate actually happens. Oh, if Djokovic if he'd hurt someone more, I couldn't follow the line of argument. Basically, Kyrgios was ranting and was making points to the umpire that this should happen, and it felt like he was right, and it felt like if Kyrgios had hit a ball into the crowd and had missed everybody, they would have been like, "Oh, sorry, mate, we're really sorry to see you go, but off you go."
He should have gone. I was delighted that he didn't, because I wanted to see the match go on. But I mean, like, he was right. Djokovic went as well. But the tennis itself was actually brilliant. In the last 3 points of the match, Kyrgios saved a set point in that fourth set tiebreak with a delicious little subtle dink over the net, which was, like 9 times out of 10 you missed those. And then the next 2 points, brilliant winners.
It has been excellent over the last few days.
Yeah, over the weekend.
The Sinner Alcaraz stuff last night.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I mean, they're the future. 20 and 21. 20 and 19 actually. Yeah, I mean, they are. That's what we have to look forward to. We've talked about before, you have like Medvedev, Zverev, Thiem, Tsitsipas are all brilliant, but not quite like absolutely elite, whereas Alcaraz and Sinner are showing really good signs of being
I'd
next
never
level
heard of Sinner before this.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Italian guy, he's been thereabouts. He had never done anything on grass before this tournament. Never won a major grass match, but he's made serious strides here and was like totally outplayed Alcaraz, to which Alcaraz admitted afterwards. Actually posted on Instagram saying you were by far the better player. Looking forward to have many more battles in the future. We talked about Alcaraz a few months ago, that everyone was calling him the best player in the world in current form, and since then, he got knocked out of the French Open earlier than expected. Kind of did okay here at Wimbledon. Doesn't have any experience in grass really, but the future's bright for those two. And for tennis as well, like, we had Roger Federer come on court yesterday. It was great to see him in his suit. Sad to see him not playing. But like, we do eventually need to move on from these three. But while they're here, we want to cherish them.
That's happening though. What side of the draw is everybody on?
So Djokovic can play Nadal.
Right.
1 against 2. They're seeded 1 and 2 because Medvedev's world number 1. He obviously can't play, his banned, and Zverev is injured, and he was world number 2. So they moved up to 1 and 2. And from the Kyrgios perspective, he can play Nadal in the semi-final and has a really, really good chance of getting there. I mean, it would be total self-destruction by him if he does not get to
American.
Yeah, Nakashima, 20-year-old.
Okay.
No real experience in the game of note, like, very talented player, but Kyrgios should beat him all day long. And then he'll probably play Alex de Minaur in the quarterfinals, his fellow Aussie, who he has a winning record against. Like, he should definitely beat him, and that would be Nadal in the semi-finals. And of course, he's beaten Nadal before in the 2014 fourth round to get to the quarterfinal of Wimbledon.
Right.
So grass is by far his best service. Like, Kyrgios is going to go missing again for another 6 months after this. So we want to cherish him while we have him. And then he could play Djokovic in the final, which is the most long overdue match in sport. Djokovic against Kyrgios.
Djokovic has to, so he's got Sinner on his side then.
Yeah, he's got Sinner. Yeah, so like,
but nobody else.
The big threat that Djokovic has not had to deal with is Matteo Berrettini, who got to the final last year, who Djokovic beat in 4 sets. Berrettini pulled out in day 2 of the tournament with COVID without striking a ball, and he had won Queens before that, retained Queens actually.
Okay.
So that, that was his biggest threat, I would say. I mean, Djokovic should easily win this because Nadal, hasn't won Wimbledon in 12 years.
And very quickly, Swiatek.
Yeah, it's gone.
Out.
Yeah, she's gone. Like, got really easily beaten by Elise Cornet. It was bound to happen. She's not that comfortable on grass. She's just playing on momentum alone. But like, to win like 37 matches in a row, which incorporates 6 tournaments, is incredible. That's the record for the 21st century. Beat Venus Williams' record from 2000. But it was just one match too many. Right. And Cornet easily beat her.
All right, 13 minutes past 8. That is this week's Gillette Labs Performance Rankings.
OTB AM's Performance Rankings with Gillette.